topic today is more specific to future of search keywords. So, things that I think I want to unpack with you a little bit is like, the trends you see. Obviously, you being an expert, an SEO expert, keywords that, or even industries that you see sort of, are leaning more towards. I know there's a algorithm as well that has, changed. A lot of the websites are, a lot of people are coming to me and it's like, my website's like, just there's a drop in what happened, right? And it's sort of like things like that. I kind of want to talk to you about, but I guess we can start it off with how do you think search keywords is evolving in the last couple of, I would even say 2 or 3 years, right? How do you think that's changing so far?
To be honest with you, I don't think this is going to be I don't think a whole lot has changed at its core, right? Like if we go back to the core of SEO, and I don't know if you recall, but we've had a conversation before where I'm not even fond of the term SEO because that's search engine optimization. And I think what we're doing, or what we've been doing for many years, is actually web presence optimization. It's broader than just how do I get found on search, but we'll stick with search. Everybody knows SEO, so we'll stick with talking about SEO. Yeah. And specifically, if we're talking about where the keywords fit into SEO, for a long time people have been saying, well, first off, SEO is dead. And then keywords are dead, and there's no need to focus on keywords. But I would say at its core, let's start with Google. What's Google trying to do? Google wants to provide the right answers to the right people at the right time, right? That has always been their motive, right? Their algorithm, their goal, and all of their algorithms and algorithm changes have always been about how do we make sure when you're searching for something, or I'm searching for something, and I'm doing it on my desktop, or I'm doing it on a phone, that they're delivering the right result based on what I'm searching for, right, on the desktop or on the phone. And so at the root of that then is, what is my intent, or what am I trying to accomplish, right? What's my goal? Why am I searching? Right? And when we start to talk about intent, really, there's people sort of boil it down to there's 3 types of intent, 3 primary types of intent, right? There's, first off, there's commercial intent. That's where I'm interested in buying something, right? So let's go to the example of let's tie this all around pizza, because I love pizza. Everybody loves pizza.
I love pizza. Perfect.
A commercial search, right, on a phone would be, where's the best pizza in Barrie? Or can I get a pizza in Barrie? Where are you? You're in Toronto?
I'm in Brampton.
Brampton?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, pizza in Brampton, or in my neighborhood, right? That's a commercial. That's a search with commercial intent, because I've specifically said, and Google understands that what I'm looking for is to buy a pizza where, like, near me or where I'm located, and that's a very simple commercial search. There's commercial intent, and so in order to address that, I need content that I have to prove to Google that I have the best pizza. And so this is a big long story about how do I do that. I have to prove to Google that I have the best pizza in Barrie or Brampton, right? And ultimately that will determine whether or not I show up in the search results. And if it's searching for a pizza locally, then I want to show up in the local map results. And there's a bunch of factors that account for that. Alternatively, I might search pizza recipe, right? Where that's something where the intent is more informational. I'm not looking to buy a pizza. I'm looking at how to figure out how to make my own, right? And so the intent is completely different. It's purely informational. I'm looking for information. So Google's going to present me with a different set of results based on that search. They're not going to show me where I can go buy a pizza, because obviously what I've intimated is that I want to make one. The last one then would be navigational intent, where I already know where to get the pizza. I know what I think the best pizza is. So I'm going to search Domino's in
Gotcha.
Barrie or Domino's in Brampton. And right, that's more of a navigational search. So we got kind of the three types. There's commercial or transactional, right? There's educational or informative, and then there's navigational. And in each case, you know, that the person searching has a different need, or they're trying to accomplish a different goal. And I've kind of gone off track on where keywords comes into this, but ultimately, the keywords are still the root of the content that people are searching for, right? Like you have to have content that addresses that intent. So if somebody says, you know, how do I make a pizza, and you want to be found for that, then you need to have the content that answers that question. And keywords are effectively still what makes up the content. Like, you can't expect to be found for, you know, pizza recipe if you don't have that content somewhere
Right.
on your website or in your web presence.
Yeah, I'm glad you addressed those three types of intent, because I think people don't realize that there are different types of keywords, you know, and it's all about the intent of those keywords. And you know, we see this all the time, and even when I work with you, Jeff, it's, you know, a lot of small businesses, they think, oh, they want to own the word, let's say, you know, the word plumber, like just that word, and it's so broad and generic, right? And
Yes.
like, yeah, but I want to be the best plumber. I want to be the one when people search plumbing in like Barrie or in Brampton. But it takes a lot more effort and doing that. Do you think that type of mindset for, you know, for small business owners, do you think that ever is going to change, or do you think there's going to be a more knowledge small business owners coming into the next future?
I doubt it. I think our job is to inform and educate, you know, small business owners on how they can be found online, and what it takes to be found online. I mean, I know your wheelhouse is more paid, and then there needs to be, you know, SEO and paid need to be complementary. So for that person that wants to be found for plumber, I mean, you and I both know, because that's a very competitive, very broad keyword. Even if they want to pay for it, that's not going to be a simple proposition. That's going to be very expensive, right?
Right.
And I mean, and I know, like I always say, well, it's common sense that it would be, right? Like, there's how many plumbers in Barrie, how many plumbers in Brampton? Everybody's competing for that same word. So our job is to sort of inform and educate, and set the proper expectation around, like, whether or not they should even want to try and be found for that keyword, like what it's going to take. So, you know, again, if you're a brand new business, and you know, brand new plumbing business, I suppose the first thing I'd recommend is finding a niche, right? Like, finding what's your unique service offering, and what makes you a different or better plumber. And then, but then also set the expectation with that business owner that you've got to convince Google that that you are indeed the expert, right? The big word we use in SEO always is authority. You have to establish the authority, and convince Google that you're authority on that topic, on those keywords or phrases that you want to be found for. And it should just be common sense that just takes a lot of time, right? Because you might be competing against companies that have been doing it for 10. If it's plumbing, you might be going up against companies who've been doing it for 30 years. And so part of the education, though, I think, is for those types, like, you know, for those small businesses, is that if you don't do sort of the basic foundational things, you'll never have it. You'll never have a chance. Like, if you don't have a good website, like a website that you know, has all of the right content, ultimately answers all of the questions that your customers have about whatever services that you offer, right? That's kind of, again, key, because the core of search is people are asking questions. They're asking questions and looking for answers. And Google is going to reward the websites and or web presences. And again, I think web presence is the better word, because especially if we're talking about local, like we've been there, right? And I've been talking local for a very long time. Your web presence is not just your website. It's just still important to have a website, but what might be more important is having a Google business profile. Own a property owned by Google. I mean, it's your business profile. You can claim it as yours as part of your business, but that business profile has all of the information that you can find. It better have all of the information you can find on your website. So it should have all of your contact details. It should have talk about all of your services. But then it also has things like customer reviews. Imagine how important those are, right? In terms of affecting your authority. Google is going to take its cues from what your customers say about you. Are you running a good business? Are you delivering good services? Do your customers say that you're doing all of those things? So reviews from if we're talking about local SEO specifically, the reviews are huge. And then another piece to sort of establish your authority is getting other people, so not just reviews, not just your customers, but getting other web properties, other websites, whether they be local websites or industry specific websites, to validate your existence. And the way you do that is through what we call, you've heard the term backlinks or inbound links. Links that come from reputable, relevant websites to you. That's a signal to Google that says, hey, there's a business that's active and it's legitimate and it's relevant because this other business or this other organization says so. Right? One of the examples I always give is if you have a local chamber of commerce, like, and almost every town, city, village has a chamber of commerce, I'd be running down to my chamber of commerce to see whether or not they have a directory that I could put my business in with a link to my website, because Google will find that and they'll say, oh, here's this business. They say they're in Brampton. They're in the Brampton Chamber of Commerce, and maybe they're associated with other Brampton organizations, and those organizations link to them. That's a clear sign of their localness and their local authority, right? And then ultimately it just takes a whole lot of that, right? Like and it's not going to happen overnight. It just takes a lot to convince Google that, hey, I'm a brand new business, I'm a brand new plumber, and I'm as good, if not better than that competitor of mine who's been doing it for 20 years.
Right.
Now, hopefully that competitor doesn't have all these great reviews, hasn't been creating good content, doesn't have a good website. But if he does, or if they do, now you've got to work that much harder to unseat, right? It's
I think
it's challenging. Right? It's a tough conversation sometimes.
I love how you mentioned, because there's a lot of there's a lot of new trends nowadays of SEO and a lot more black hat, I think, that I see that are coming up, like like farming your reviews and all that stuff, right? I think Google is changing a little bit, and I think you can see this as well. But I actually want to know from you on what do you think the trends are that that you're foreseeing kind of shaping the future of web presence, right?
Yeah. It's not listening for long enough. Google has been doing this forever. Every time one of these if you want to call it black hat, gray hat, every time somebody comes up with a tactic or a quick fix, an SEO trick, some sort of magic. Like I may have told you this a while back, but my goal in life is to demystify SEO and convince people that there is no magic, there are no tricks. And if there are, don't listen. They won't work, or they may for a short period of time, right? Where so go way back in time. When backlinks, people first started to realize that backlinks were important. Hey, you need to have links, and like the more links you have, the more Google's going to pay attention, and the better chance that you have of kind of improving your visibility and improving your rank. So what did people do? Even big brands and big organizations. There was a case of years ago, J.C. Penney, a major department store in the U.S., hired an agency. Unbeknownst to them, the agency went out and bought a whole bunch of backlinks that had nothing to do with J.C. Penney. Like it was purely quantity over quality. And so they bought a bunch of backlinks. Google eventually changed the rules and said, hey, it's not just quantity, it's quality. They gotta be relevant links. They can't be purchased. And Google figured out a way to, find out that they've been purchased, and they were obviously purchased. You could look at a link and say, that's obviously a spammy link, right? Don't do that. But to get back to your question, how are things changing? I think what people are starting to realize, I'm hoping people are starting to realize, is that you can't do those things. There are no tricks. I've been posting on LinkedIn for the last couple of months, hashtag no silver bullets. There are no silver bullets. There's no one thing you can do that's going to suddenly say, Google's going to say, oh, you deserve to be number one now because you did X. Like that just doesn't work. It takes work. The biggest one, so the biggest algorithm change. So a couple of years ago, Google came out and started building what they call the helpful content system, where they were going to reward businesses and reward websites that generated and provided their customers with helpful content, like truly helpful, relevant, high quality content. And so in September of 2020, a few months back, they did an update to the algorithm. And this is important because it wasn't just there's been other changes in Google where it's like they apply a change and it has sort of an immediate effect. But this isn't just a change, it's an actual algorithm. So it's the helpful content system, which means it will punish you forever if you don't do the right things. So a couple of weeks ago, they released a helpful content update, and it was literally a bloodbath for businesses that had spammy, unhelpful websites and content. And there were some that were very kind of. I've been looking at sort of some of the research that's been done on this already, and sites where there are a lot of affiliate links, linking out to other sites for additional information, but not being, not linking to relevant sites. A lot of pure, question and answer sites. And one of the things about the helpful content update that I didn't mention is Google specifically and explicitly said, don't create a website or create content just for SEO purposes, because we'll be able to tell. Like if you over optimize your site, we're going to punish you for that. And a couple of weeks ago, they started doing that. Now, some of those sites may naturally come back. Like a lot of people have been screaming, "Oh my God, that's not fair!" Like I was doing all the right things, or I think I was doing all the right things. I was following the SEO guidance of my agency, and even that agency thought they were doing the right thing, but they too far over optimized, right? At the end of the day, I've said this for a long time now as well. If it feels like you're trying to game the system, you probably are, and that's going to come back and bite you in the ass, right? So,
Yeah.
But it's still about, like, really, it's think about your audience, think about your customer, and think about making sure that you're answering all of the questions they have about whatever product or service you offer, and doing it in an authentic, real way.
Right.
I know that's not, and that's hard, right? Like I think, and that's what, so a lot of businesses are going to struggle with that because, we're thinking about small local businesses. That's really hard because they're just trying to run their business, right? That's all they want to do. They don't want to worry about marketing and content and websites and GBPs and all that garbage.
Right.
So, they need help with that. So if we're going to help them, then we should make sure that we're doing it in the right way.
Yeah, I
I have
mean,
another thought, because this now will naturally lead us into, well, okay, then what about AI? Can AI help?
yeah, I was gonna ask about AI.
Is that where we want to go?
Yeah, yeah. Talk to me a little bit about AI, Jeff, because I know you and I worked on AI a lot,
Yeah.
in some aspects of AI, but with this, with this whole thing, and you said it's all about answering questions of people who search, right? And so, do you think that because of AI, do you think that's going to change? SEO is going to change a little bit because of that?
Um, uh, Again, yes and no. If you've always been doing things the right way, like then it shouldn't change. It shouldn't
Hmm.
change. Um, AI, Google has been using AI for years. So is Bing. What's changing from a Google perspective is maybe the way that the results are going to be presented. So there's a new thing coming. It's already out there. It's in their labs, and they've actually released it last week into the wild in a few locations, called Search Generative Experience.
Hmm.
And that's basically the searcher is interacting now with the chatbot, right? So
Hmm.
you're gonna type in whatever it is, Pete Berry, and you're still gonna get the map results, but Google's going to try and give you everything you need without having to click. Like you're going to, and then you've got a follow-on question. Hey, are there other pizza places that I might consider? You're going to do that right within the search results. So what might change is, how do I make sure that I get into those results? Is that my content's being considered by the AI that's powering that chatbot? So if we're not talking about local, people are curious about, and we're starting to see. So a couple of weeks ago, Google did a partnership with Reddit, and so now Reddit
Hmm.
responses are starting to show up a lot more in search results, and our people are assuming that some of what the AI is going to be trained on is that Reddit content. Well, does that mean now we need to have businesses interacting more in Reddit or Quora? That's another one that's come up. Is that, okay, do I have to be answering questions in Quora, or engaging with my audience in Reddit? I suppose what I'd say to that is, yes, if that's where you think your audience is,
Hmm.
right? I think, again, let's take a step back, and maybe where we should all start when we're thinking about SEO, whether it be the local or the B2B enterprise level, is, and I know we all know this because marketers know this, but who's the customer and what are they trying to accomplish, and where are they going? Where are they going to look for information, or where do I anticipate that they're going to look for information? Like, what if I'm selling SaaS B2B software? Where's my audience going to go to look for information? They might go to G2, or they might go to Trustpilot. They might go to one of these review sites, or they might conduct a search. Again, part of my web presence, I do need to be in these places. Particularly if one of the things I always recommend is, if when you're trying to decide whether or not should I be in the G2 directory, or find local, should I be in the yellow pages? Do a search on the things that you want to be found for, and if those directories are showing up, then yeah, you want to be there, right? Because by definition, they're authoritative already, right? So if I'm searching for, if I go searching for SaaS software and G2 shows up, or again, Trustpilot or one of these review sites show up, hell yeah, I better be in there, because Google's recognizing them as an authority, so that I can piggyback on their authority. We think about backlinks. Every time I talk, we talk about doing backlink research. Where should I go to get links? Search for the words that you want to be found for. See if there's anything non-competitive showing up, and see if you can get links from those places, because Google's telling us those are the top search results, right? Those are the authoritative sites. Those will help maybe propel you or pull you up into visibility. And so likewise, that getting back to the AI component of it, like the SGE, Google's going to be training itself on that information. Oh, and one of the other ones that Google's probably training on, YouTube. They own that platform, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of content there that the AI is going to be able to crawl, is going to be able to analyze, check, video transcripts. All of that content is there and available. and it's going to show up in the search results. So you probably need to be on YouTube in some way, shape, or form.
And you wrote a really good article about that in the SCJ site as well, and it's about video content, how
Yeah,
and how video content needs to be, and I think you mentioned a little bit of like local strategy and how that correlates with video. Do you think video, and how video is changing now with AI as well, do you think that would have an impact in the way we search things or the way we look at things online now? Like, for example, if I want to find like the pizza recipe that you mentioned, right? Do you think there's going to be more video content coming up for those searches?
I don't see why. I don't see why it wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I look for a pizza recipe or how to make a pizza, I'm probably going to go look at it. Especially I bought one of these wood-fired ovens at Costco a couple of years ago, and I'm trying to perfect a pizza crust, and it's hard. it's hard. So what I'll probably end up on a video trying to figure out how to do that, right? I do think that the SGE specifically, like there's a lot of fear about losing organic traffic because people aren't going to need to click through. They're going to be able to see like what they need is going to be right there within the search results. And this has been a fear for forever. Like there was always talk of position 0 in Google, even years ago. The search snippet, like featured snippets. This is just a follow-on to featured snippets, right? Featured snippets are really, to me, it's about Google trying to keep the traffic in Google rather than having to send it somewhere. So I think for these informational type searches, like where that's the intent, the information or educational stuff, that's going to be really well served by SGE. But when it comes to the transaction, the commercial, people are still going to want to go to the website and make the purchase or contact the business. Like I don't see it affecting local. Like the map pack is still going to show up. People are still going to, they're going to engage with that human-run business, right? The other side of the coin, though, and I think you alluded to it, is like how does AI fit into content creation, and how important is it? Because there's a big fear that because it's so easy to just go to the machine and say, "Hey, create me 10 blog posts on topic X," that I think the the traction for a lot of, especially small businesses who don't have any time, is just, okay, let the machine do it. That's not the right answer either, or for any business to just let the machine generate the content. There has to be, and Google showed this, part of the helpful content massacre that happened 2 weeks ago, or it's still happening now. A lot of that was AI generated, like sites that had AI generated content, where it was obvious that nothing had been done beyond the AI generating the content, right? So for a small business or any business, like if you're going to use AI, use it as a tool to help create the draft. Help first up ideate. So, okay, give me 10 topics on whatever, right? I'm a local plumber, or I'm a local pizza store. Give me 10 topics on my industry, or whatever the case may be. And then maybe even let the AI, create this is my customer, my target customer. These are their wants and fears and desires and needs. Generate an article or a blog post that will take one of those topics and answer questions that they have. But then I'm going to take that and I'm going to have to edit it. I'm going to have to go in and add my unique perspective or opinion or experience. Talk about how it's different at my shop, or talk about projects. If I'm a plumber, talk about projects that I've worked on. Insert something about your business that makes it unique, because I think what a lot of us fear is that you're just going to end up with a whole bunch of the same content on every website. And Google, so I think in a lot of ways, that's Google's signal 2 weeks ago. It sort of validated that fear, and that they're likewise saying, don't just generate content for content's sake. It sort of falls in line with, don't create websites just for SEO. Don't just create content for content's sake.
Mm.
Do it from the perspective of, your, so they've got, there's a lot of acronyms in SEO and digital marketing. One for Google is EEAT, which is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. They look at those 4 things on every piece of content they look at. So if it's something that's just been randomly generated by AI and slapped on a blog, like slapped into a website, if it doesn't have those 4 things, it's not gonna, there's no value in it, right? It's not helpful. There's no value.
Yeah.
You're just doing it to try and influence rank. Yeah, it's not going to work. So go back to your original question, how are things changing? That's how things are changing. Google is, again, getting better at weeding out the crap.
For the lack of a better word, yes. I really love this type of topic because it's more practical, right, than it is, than anything. Like, not a lot of people can afford paid ads, and so that's the first thing that they should do, and I think they should have it. Do you think small businesses, like, again, thinking about like a small mom and pop, someone, a plumber, or maybe like someone who owns a pizza store, do you think they should have blogs all the time to drive that content, or do you think it's not necessarily there as long as their content or their website is optimized for
they still need some other type of content, so another thing Google likes is freshness, right? So if they have a website and the website doesn't change, they do the same things, like, and I get that, right? Like a plumber, it's not like they're suddenly going to offer a new service. They need to keep answering the questions. I think that would be my biggest recommendation. And whether they do that with a blog or with a video, a 30-second video to answer a question about, I don't know, how do I unclog my toilet, or how do I keep my, so we're in Canada, how do I keep my pipes from freezing in the winter? Doesn't have to be a blog necessarily. It could be, a quick 30-second video, throw it up on YouTube. And then take the link. Here's the important part. Take the link that you've created, take that blog or take that link to your video, put it on your Google business profile. That, and we'll go back to GBP, that Google business profile, if we're talking about local, it is gold. Not everybody, and that's really, it's an underutilized area. Not every business understands how important it is, and it's so important. It's so much more important in many cases than your website. So you need to be going and posting, I don't care what it is, updates, like before, so you're a plumber, before and after pictures of projects you've worked on, spring suggestions for, how to reopen your cottage and make sure that your pipes aren't frozen, or whatever, like come up with these kinds of things. And so another one from a Google, in our previous life, we know how important reviews are. Getting the review is important. Responding to the review is also important, and doing that as quickly as you possibly can because Google's paying attention, right? So I've got a buddy here in town, and I help him with his, he runs an auto body shop. And I'm on him all the time, but we got to post a Google business profile more. And if he ever gets a review, like I get notified when he gets reviews. As quickly as I possibly can, I go and make sure that we respond to that review. Or if he gets a message through GBP, respond to that message as quickly as you possibly can. Even if it's just with, so for him, is a really good example. Doesn't believe in all this web stuff, right? Understands it's important. And I've convinced him that, this stuff really matters. And so whenever we get a request for a quote or some sort of information request through Google Business Profile, I respond as quickly as I can with, give him a call. Here's his number. Because he just wants to talk to a person on the phone. And if he gets him on the phone, he'll probably close the business. Like that, they've reached out, provided you get back quickly enough, right? If it takes 1 or 2 days to respond to that request, you're probably not going to get it because there's 5 other auto body shops, right? And Google knows that too. So when they send out their Google Business Profile performance updates, like you get once a month, here's how you're doing on on GBP, one of the things they show is how quickly you've responded. And that's part of your performance rating, is how quickly you respond to requests. So if you're a small local business, it's critical to post content in GBP, keep it up to date, and then ask people for reviews. Don't be shy. If you like their service, hey, go to Google Business Profile, give me a review, and then once you get that review, respond right away. Hey, thank you so much for the nice review. Auto Body Shop, it's kind of tough for him, because when I respond to some of his reviews, it's like, we're happy you enjoyed the service. Hope to see you again soon. You can't really say that, because that means they were in a car crash.
It's a good response.
Right?
I think there's humor in that, and I think that makes it. But yeah,
we don't hope see you again soon.
You can't have the return. I want to ask you about, because I mean, so you mentioned a couple of things like the tactics to use, right? Let's say I'm doing this, a small business owner already doing this, and they've been doing it for about 3 months, right? And they're still not seeing anything. They're still, and this is a common question. Do you think with like the technology, the way it's changing right now, do you think specifically with AI and the algorithm, do you think that will change the speed of things or do you think
No.
No,
No, I don't think so. I think it's just there's too many factors.
Right.
Too many. So unfortunately, the answer almost every time is it depends. It's actually interesting. I saw a post on LinkedIn today. I believe it was an agency owner, and he had a nice graph of the time, basically time to SEO. And so the first 1 to 3 months, he had his foundational, and the graph was kind of like, how do I expect my visibility and or my organic traffic to increase over time, right? So in the first 3 months, and this was, from the assumption that we know nothing about this business before they come to us, or where, how much authority or visibility they had when they got to us, because that's really important, right? Or what they did before that may be affecting their ability to improve now. Like maybe they went and bought backlinks 2 years ago and still penalizing them for it, right? Like you don't know unless you can find out that history. You may be, battling against that. But anyways, let's just assume generically, the first 3 months foundational. We're going to try and make sure that everything we can do to set you up for success has been done. We set up, a proper website, structured nicely. It has, keywords and all the title tags in the headings. And the internal linking has been reviewed. We've started to build some backlinks. We've created a blog for you, and we've started to create some content there. So we've done all the sort of the foundational things. From sort of months 3 to 7, then it's about building on that foundation. So that's where now, oh yeah, sorry, I missed the other big one, right? GBP. We set that up properly and made sure that it's as accurate as can be. Is part of the service that at the local level we need to worry about, making sure that your GBP is consistent with your yellow pages and your I don't know, all the other directories that are out there, and maybe there's some local directories. We want to make sure that those are as up to date as we can be. So that's the first 3 months, like setting up the foundation, making sure that that's all in place. From there, out to sort of the first 7 months, now it's about building on that. So I've got a website, I've got a blog. I'm going to start blogging on a consistent basis, taking that content and then sharing it out, I don't know, through social channels or through my GBP 100%. I'm going to continue to try and find other links that I can build. I'm going to engage with my community. I'm going to, respond to my reviews. I'm going to start asking for reviews more regularly, all of that. Hopefully in the next sort of between the 4 and 7 month period, you should see a gradual incline. Right? Gradual. And so the factors that come into play are, how big a city are you in? Are you a plumber in Brampton versus a plumber in Barrie? Are you, who are your competitors? What are they doing? Because I go back to that, right? So if you've got competitors who are active, who know to do all these things and are doing them, it's just going to take that much longer for you to unseat them, if at all. Like you may not, right? Like plumber in Brampton, brand new, it might not be possible. Like, unless something happens to that competitor goes away and stops doing what they're doing, stops doing all the good things. Otherwise, well, I suppose one thing that could propel you is you suddenly you did start providing an obviously better service, and you got a ton of good reviews. Hundreds of reviews, thousands of reviews that Google just couldn't not pay attention to. I don't know. You landed a spot on HGTV as like Canada's top plumber. Okay, that could propel you, right? Because you're building your authority.
Right.
But the natural progression should be on years or months 4 to 7. Now we should start to see something happen, and then hopefully months 7 to 12 and beyond. Again, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. But there's no quick fix. There's no silver bullet.
There's no silver bullet.
I don't know. It makes me, but when you take a step back and say, how do I convince Google that I'm the best?
Right.
Like, what's it going to take? And say it's not just Google. I have to convince everybody in Brampton that I'm the best.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to do that? Right. That's really what it comes down to. Right. I've told this story many times. I don't know if I've already told you, so if I have, I apologize. But I had a client back in the day here in Barrie, a commercial real estate agent, and he'd been around for a few years, I think like 5-ish years. Brought him on as a client, built him a new website, updated their GBP, built a blog, came up with a great content schedule, like answered every question you could ever think about commercial real estate in Barrie. 6 months in, nothing. He's improved, but he's got one competitor, commercial realtor, who's been established in Barrie for 25-ish years. Shitty website, has a GBP, but limited, right? It's up to date. It's got the right contact information, gets a few reviews here and there. But Google had figured out that business was the biggest and best commercial real estate business in Barrie. We can create all the digital content we want.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time to prove to Google that they're not number one anymore, right? It's just by volume, their signs, and I know if I drive around Barrie, I still see their signs are everywhere. Like, there's no disputing they are the biggest and best. Now, if my client didn't do the things he was doing, he'd never have any chance of, So he's trying to get a piece of the pie. He's probably not going to keep that other guy from being number one, unless that guy really stops, or that guy starts getting a bunch of negative reviews. Right? Customers are pissed off. He starts under delivering, or starts, the business isn't being run well. Again, I think Google would eventually figure that out, right? And he'd be unthroned. But that's what it would take. And that, I know it has not a whole lot to do with SEO, but it does and it doesn't, right?
But
again,
it's a good reminder.
It's not SEO, it's web presence optimization. Like,
there you go.
That guy probably had links. He had partners all around the city. He was part of the Chamber of Commerce. So this would be other things, like he sponsored the local hospital and sports teams and, organizations. What the hell does that have to do with SEO?
Yeah.
It makes him authoritative in our town. It makes him he has a presence. There's no disputing it.
Yeah. It's just good business, like
I hate, that's sometimes the answer, right? Is what does it take to rank really well or have good visibility? Run a good business.
Yeah.
If you do the opposite, then you're going to have a tough time. Imagine that. Like,
well, in that case, then, Jeff, how would you, or what advice, what encouragement, words of encouragement can we give small business owners that are just starting out and seeing, hey, you know what, that's I think perfect example, right? How do we encourage these people to hey, you need to have a website, you need to have good content, and you need to do all of this stuff. When we know it takes a long time, and it's a lot of work, and it
Yeah.
gets tiring as well. Like, is there any tips or advice or words of encouragement that you can give this small business owners?
Yeah, I think part of it, um, digital marketing today, they probably already know this or don't want to admit it, but it's table stakes. Like, again, you have to do this. If you don't do this, you'll never have any chance. And now there's going to be some local businesses where they get enough referral business. Like, if they can run their business outside of digital and they can get busy. Again, my auto body shop friend, right? We could be doing a whole lot more for him. There's other body shops in town, but he's super busy. He's already busy. So, I push him on it. Like, send me before and after pictures. I want to post those to your Google business profile. That's really important. But he's busy. So,
Yeah.
and he's doing okay. But if you're a small business that you're not busy, or you're not as busy as you'd like to be, you'd like to grow the business. It's just a frank conversation of, these are the things we have to do, and if we don't do them, we won't have a chance. Like, and we have to do them in the proper way. Sorry, there's no silver bullet. It's going to take time. How much time? I'd love to tell you, but unfortunately, I don't know. Hopefully, again, too many variables, right? Maybe once they're on board as a client, we can do an analysis and look at the competition. I suppose there's one other thing I kind of left out that maybe we should think about is, again, getting back to the niche stuff, right? Can we look at like long tail phrases? So let's go all the way back to keywords. One of the things we haven't talked about is the difference between short tail and long tail keywords. Rather than wanting to be found for Brampton plumber, what if I tried to be found for where do I get my toilet fixed in Brampton, or how do I get my drains unclogged? How do I keep my pipes from freezing? Having the answers to those direct questions, that's going to be important as well with SGE, with this new search generative experience, right? If I have the blatant answers to those questions, so I create a blog post that answers those questions. So this one takes a little bit of research to figure out what all of those questions are, right? Even ask your customers when they come in, hey, how did you find us? What specifically were you looking for? If you can get to those longer phrases, those are sometimes easier to quote unquote rank for, because maybe the competition hasn't thought about answering those questions or cared about it. That's one of the things. Sometimes if you have a bigger competitor, they maybe necessarily haven't thought about doing all of the best practice quote unquote SEO stuff, like creating content to answer all those questions, either because they're a big enough brand that they didn't care, they're busy enough, they don't worry about it. So that's kind of the other tactic is, hey, maybe we should look at sort of, won't call it lower hanging fruit, but it sort of is. Are there gaps or opportunities outside of those big competitive keywords that we can try and focus on, right? And then over time, build up our authority. Like, if we answer, how do I fix my toilet? How do I get my drain cleaned enough times, and enough people come to us for that, that influences our ability to be found as a more generic owner. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think that should be. I really think that strategy is so smart, just because, with the new way of searching things, and you talk about informational like intent and those type of information that we need to get, video, but then also this type of content that small businesses can produce right away, because I mean they're experts in their own field, right? And so answering a question like, how do I get my my plumbing issues fixed right away, right? Like, it's so simple, so easy. Do you think that that's again, looking at long tail versus short tail keywords, do you think those the way we think about keywords, do you think that's going to change, considering that Chat GPT, we can get information there, right? Like we can, if I type in how to fix something, it would be the same information. Do you think that's going to change in terms of channel or where we find information?
Not a whole no, not a whole lot. I mean, the sources for that data are the sources for that data. One of the things I kind of guard against is some of the SEO tools out there. I mean, they give you a sense of what's the search volume for a keyword. And again, if we're talking about local, it's almost always negligible. Like it's almost, oh, there's been 10 searches this month or 20 searches this month for that keyword. But that's where the long tail matters, right? Is that you have to have 100 of those keywords, and if you have 100 of those keywords that have 10 searches each, now you got 1,000. Right?
Oh, that's yeah.
Unfortunately, what that means is that's going to take more work because you need because you need content to address all those keywords, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I do think you make a good point. And the other thing, like a small business can think about is be that's what that article I most recently wrote about for video. That's why I thought it was important to write an article about video. Is that might be something that differentiates you, right? The local body shop guy that does 15-second videos on Instagram or YouTube about how to paint a car, how to fix a dent, how to those types of things. If he's the only one doing it in whatever location, wherever he is, that might differentiate him from the competition who's not doing it, right? And again, those videos now might show up in the search results because Google owns YouTube, and that's something that the AI is going to be looking at. It's going to be training on video content. So looking for those opportunities, ways to differentiate yourself. So I got one other good story. There was a COVID business here in my town. They make cinnamon buns, sticky buns, of all things. Small family-run business. Actually, gentleman was a mechanic, lost his job, but always dreamed of baking. He had a baking background somehow. Mechanic to baker, whatever. Talked to the family, and they came up with like, what do we want to do as like a COVID business? And they came up with sticky buns. And so they started making these out of their home and doing like deliveries. They're around the corner from my house, and the cinnamon buns are spectacular. They do all different types of flavors. Anyways, they started to build something of a local following, and then they created an Instagram page and a TikTok channel, and the Instagram has absolutely blown up. And so they went shortly after COVID. They had to, because they were getting so many orders, they opened a commercial kitchen. But that meant that they had to take all the ingredients over to the commercial kitchen and make all the stuff there, and then deliver it, and a lot of logistics. Almost 2 years ago now, they opened a location. All on the back of doing like digital, like they really went all in on digital marketing. Now they had kids, that probably helped. They had teenage kids who helped build their web presence, right? Which was mostly Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I think they do have a website, and they have a very active GBP, right? But there's a good example. Now, they're probably the only cinnamon bun maker, but they're not the only bakery or pastry shop in town. But they do really, really well. Like they've built a really strong, from the outside looking in, it looks like they've built a really good, strong business. And they've done it on the back of like really good content.
That's amazing. Well, that shows. Oh man, it's viral marketing is a whole thing that I maybe we can talk about this in some other time. But I love how like digital marketing, like those successful stories, those are testament to what we do, right? Like as marketers, you and I, and that's an amazing story to hear. I want to ask you before you go. I know we're kind of like running out of time here, but before you go, I want to ask for your favorite quote. What is your favorite quote that you kind of hold on to, and you always think about?
Favorite code, like saying catchphrase.
Yeah, like a quote, or or
A mantra.
wisdom that, yeah.
I have one. I think one of the things I jokingly have said for many years, I got this from a friend of my father's. We've got till 4:45, which means don't be in a rush, don't hurry. And somebody will say, well, it's 10 to 5, right? I'll say, well, okay, the next one then. We've always got till 4:45, so don't worry about it. Like
I love that.
nothing's that important that it can't
It's so
wait.
simple.
That's 4:45. Well, it's already 5. That's fine. The next one then.
I love that. I love. Oh man, that's such a simple thing. I might have to use that actually.
Simple thing, right? It's a simple thing, but and then I guess, hey, we'll go back to just from an SEO perspective.
Yeah.
My code, my mantra there. Again, I've already said it. I'm going to carry this forward from now ad infinitum. Is hashtag no silver. There are no silver bullets. No silver bullets. It takes work.
I love that. I might have to use that in my description. There's
Feel
no
free.
silver-
Yeah, no hashtag no silver bullets, because there just aren't. I mean, well, something came out the other day. There was a the Google Search Liaison came out with some guidance around. I think it was related to the helpful content update, or long story short, what he was basically saying was, again, there are no silver bullets. Like, that it takes work. Like, what do you have to create good, relevant content that proves that you're an expert and authority on whatever it is you want to be found for or want to be known for, right? And there's no way of doing that overnight, unless you're so unique, like unless you're in a niche where nobody else is doing it, and you have the only answer, or all of the answers to the questions, then there's no denying it. But that there's very few businesses out there that are like that.